Okay, here we go, our graduated bob. So I start off by combing a section in the back and I separate the two sides. I'll begin cutting on the left side, create a diagonal section, comb the hair straight out, and then from there I'll go and I'll cut my graduated shape that moves from long to short. Now make sure as you're combing out this section that you always notice the teeth of your comb is parallel to the hair that you just combed. Okay, here I comb out my next diagonal section, and my sections here that start to pivot. So I'll stand when I'm cutting the left side of this G-bob. My chest is basically parallel to his shoulder. Okay, and then I just make sure you comb out really clean sections. And prior to even cutting, just have that section, just run it play by play in your mind first. And remember, these sections will start to pivot, so you'll find that you'll start to build up a bit more length as you move towards the ear. Okay, so working in small, manageable sections, I pivot and I'll elevate slightly. So my elevation is more on the outside of my inside fingers. So that is the area that elevates and pivots more. The very base length that I cut in with my guideline, that stays the same. So remember, here we're just pivoting, and after you nail a section, comb it to natural fall and make a visual assessment. If there's something that pops out, that's an indicator that your G-bob may start to be collecting errors. Okay, and here I'll divide that section into two smaller, more easy to manage. Now I'm elevating, and from here at the occipital bone, I'll start to build my weight. So from here until the crown area, every single section is over directed and elevated to the exact same point. So again, here we're building up the weight. Keep your elbows, fingers, sections, scissors all parallel. This is imperative to really like nailing a G-bob. Your body position and where your elbows are, the way you comb the hair. So a G-bob is a super intricate technique. It's quite, you can lose yourself in it. So it's really good to go through mentally and just play the entire cut through your head. Okay, so again here, I'm building my weight. I'm over directing the hair to the exact same point. Now I can pivot my body or I can pivot the chair. So since for video shoots, it's easier for me to move the chair. So I position the head in where I can cut it most comfortably, so that way my margin of error will be much lower. Okay, so now my section is reading the crown area, so I'll use slightly less tension here to allow for any jumpy cowlicks. And notice how my stroke count, the way when I stroke the hair, is really slow, it's very calculated, because as I'm stroking the hair from roots to my guideline, my eyes are visually making tons of assessments. One of the most important assessments is I need to ensure that the hair I'm combing is exactly parallel and clean to the teeth of my comb. Comb the hair to natural fall. Okay, so now through the left side, I'll take my guideline, and on the right portion of this haircut, I have to mirror the exact same shape. So again, starting off with a diagonal section that begins at the occipital bone, I take my guideline from the opposite side, and here I'm cutting this technique with my elbows high, fingers down. I'll line up my comb, and I just have my fingers follow my comb. I allow my comb to reach my guideline, and then my fingers kick into action, just to hold the hair in place to be cut. Okay, so the next pivoting section, I'll comb the hair out, super clean from roots to ends. At the tips of my fingers, that's where my pivot and my elevation begins, following a super clean guideline. Now with the G-bob, it's really important that throughout the entire haircut, your guideline is super evident, super clear. the thing about a G-bob is that it's relentless. If you make one little mistake, that little mistake followed up by the next section, it just throws everything off. So the margin of error on a G-bob is basically zero. Okay, and your body position comes into major play here. So as I cut the right side, I have a natural tendency to cut the tip of the right side a bit long. So what I found that compensates for this is for this portion of the section, I'll stand in front of what I'm cutting, and then I'll move over to my right, or I can swing the chair towards my chest, and that way I can comb the hair straight out, and I'll remove that natural tendency to over direct to the center of my balance, to my chest. So again, when I cut the right side, I personally start shifting little by little towards the right. Okay, so I'll work back just a little bit, cleaning up the line I just cut. Check for symmetry and balance. Okay, my next diagonal section, I always have a piece of the opposite guideline, so that way it'll help me know that my elevation is on. When that guideline is super clean, that tells me that that's the proper elevation that I need to be cutting the hair at. And again, from the occipital bone to the crown area, I'm over directing every single section to that section that was cut directly at the occipital bone. So here I'm building weight. Okay, and as you get more graduated bobs under your belt, you'll have a greater sense of awareness as to your particular habits and tendencies. So it's always smart to go and look at your gaps, at your weaknesses. So if you find that, myself personally, I find that when I cut the left side of a G-bob, my errors are more than the right side. So as I cut the right side, the back portion of the G-bob, my level of awareness is much more heightened, so I can catch myself doing a mistake before I actually do it. So I can stop myself before it even starts happening. Okay, so now I'll begin the side area. I'll start off on the right side. I'll take my guideline from the back. I'll elevate it to the exact same point. And here, standing in front of what I'm cutting, I just connect that same angle and length, and I just move it forward. Now, this time around doing this G-bob, I separated the back from the sides. I typically, most of the time, I'll go and I'll take that entire section together. But for demonstration purpose on this video, I wanted to simplify it a bit, so I separate them in two. The only difference is where these sections connect, I'll get more weight. And anticipating where I will get that weight, then I can, as I'm technically cutting the hair, I can adapt my skills. So where that weight will exist, I'll use a little bit less tension. I'll make sure that my guideline is even more so that on. So once it's dry, the weight isn't as intense. And again, through the sides, I'm using slight elevation just to get that line to fall a little bit softer. If I wanted to cut it super hard, that's no problem. I could comb it straight down onto the skin and take it down from there. Okay, and as we're moving into the sides, again, I take my guideline from the back, I extend that exact same line, the exact same angle, and I just extend it forward. Now here, I recommend that you stand in front of what you're cutting. Make sure your eyes are exactly in front of what you're cutting, so you're able to see tons of details. And work in small manageable sections. Like this side section, I'm breaking it into 3. And notice where my eyes are. They're right in front of where I'm cutting, so that way I can watch my over direction, I can keep a track on my elevation, and make sure that I'm combing the hair super clean from roots to my guideline. And through the side area here, every single section is elevated to that same point. So just working that line in, combing the hair to natural fall, make your assessments. So this is the heavier side of the haircut, so for this last section, I'll go in and I'll use the wider side of my 107. that'll allow me to compensate for any jumpy cowlicks at the crown area. And since I'm working with a much more dense hair, I'd rather go in with a 107. And if I have like tiny bit of lengths that are off, I can easily check that off once the hair is dry. So I'd rather go with this last section here with less tension than more. So again, elevating every section to the exact same point, breaking up that big section into 3 more manageable sections. And here, through the side area, the hair is much less. So here I can flip back to the tighter teeth, but I'm using less tension than I did with the prior sections. And you have to watch out for like jumpy cowlicks right at the hairline. If you come across those, over direct back a little bit more so you can retain some weight. And then once the hair is dry, you can go back and just work it from left to right until you get the symmetry and balance that to nail that haircut. It's better to be safe than sorry. I'd rather leave a little bit more length and go back and check it off than going too short. Alright, so now we're going to go and nail the left side. So now my margin of error will increase because I have to match up the exact same angle, exact same level of elevation as I cut on the right side. So again, beginning by taking my guideline from the back, combing the hair to where it was cut at, and that's where like my guideline is most evident. And even though I'm separating the back from the front this time around with this G-bob, when I go back and I'm still flowing from like the round of the head, when that section still connects to the front, it's quite similar to the effect that I would get if I took one big section. I just find that sometimes in the beginning it's a little bit easier to get your head around the technique if you separate the two. Okay, so we'll check for balance to make sure both sides are even. And again, my next section flows from the back all the way into the front. Now, your body position is really important. So here, again, I'll try my best to be right in front of what I'm cutting. I'll start in the back. Elevate the hair to the exact same point. So if you elevate the hair too high or too low or over direct the hair too far back or forward, your guideline will be really iffy, like it's scummy, scuffy. It won't be evident. When you're elevating to where it was cut, that's where your guideline is most obvious, where it's the clearest. So stand in front of what you're cutting. I like to use my comb, so I'll comb from roots to the ends really slowly, and my eyes are visually assessing that each and every strand of hair is parallel to the teeth of my comb. And once I do that last check, then I'll open my scissors and start cutting hair. Okay, and as we're working from the back into the front, remember, as we connect with our guideline through the back, our elevation will be higher. So we have to gradually move from a higher state of elevation into the lower elevation that we have at the guideline through the very front. So again, stand in front of what you're cutting, comb the hair super, super clean. Elbows, fingers, comb, scissors, you want everything parallel. So here, if it were a wider shot, you could see my body, my shoulders are slightly asymmetric. I'm an acute angle. I also become a graduated shape while I'm cutting a graduated shape. That way all my feelings are in play, and again my margin of error will be much less because my body position is right on spot. And notice as I cut my strokes, the way I comb the hair, it's not rushed. I need the time to make those visual assessments. Okay, so here we go again, working through the sides. Now this is a lighter side. So first I'll comb the hair, just like getting a feel for it. And again, the way I process combing hair, today, 22 years deep into my career, I comb the hair much slower. But that allows me to comb each portion like 1 or 2 times max. As opposed to maybe in the beginning of my career, this section I may have combed it like 10, 15 times. But every time I do the same repetitive motion, it, you confuse yourself up and your margin of error increases dramatically. Okay, so now we'll jump into the blow dry. So I'll begin just by flat wrapping the hair in the back, and I'll push the hair in tons and tons of different directions, and I just want to get a smooth shape. Then once it's pretty much dry, I'll go back in and I'll just leaf and bevel the hair. I'm not going for excessive root lift. I want to get the hair as smooth and polished as possible, but again, I'm not blowing out those roots super poofy, because after the blow dry, I have to go back and check off this haircut. So as you're doing your blow dry, pay careful attention to the angle that the nozzle of your dryer is following the base of your brush. You want that angle at about 10 to 15 degrees. So that's the best angle I found that'll help me just nail shut that cuticle. And when the cuticle is just sealed, it reflects light tremendously. So into the sides, I'm just leafing the hair. I'm using sufficient tension to get the hair nice, smooth, and polished. And I just go through and just bevel the ends, turning them over, not too crazy, just really soft, natural, organic. And you can always go for ultra shine. Hair is shiniest when the cuticle is shut. And just visually assess and touch the hair. Like when the hair feels like silk, that section should be almost finished. If the hair feels kind of bumpy or fuzzy, then you need to go and smooth out that cuticle a lot more. When the cuticle's closed, each strand of hair is sleeker, it's more refined. So you can actually feel that from combing the hair or touching the hair. And just to the front area here, I'm going for a little bit more lift at the root, because she has this awesome cowlick that I'll have to deal with. So I'll check in that cowlick area perfectly once the hair is dry. And once the hair feels smooth, I'll switch to a paddle brush and I'll just like push the hair around. I want to see a lot of movement. When the haircut is done properly, you'll get tons of movement, and you can also like comb the hair from like roots to ends without any snags. That's a really strong indicator that your haircut and finish are on. So that's how I finished off this haircut this time around. And as I dry, I don't like using my hands. I'll use my body and I'll lean forward and back, so I use less effort to get the exact same result. So I just push the hair around. Again, I like a lot of movement. I'm checking for stuff that doesn't flow. If I feel a piece that doesn't flow, I know I'll have to go back and check into there a little bit more once the hair is dry. Just get an assessment, get a feel for what you've done. Okay, so now that the hair is dry, we're gonna go back, cross-check, and texturize. So I pull the hair out and I'm just dusting. So here I'm kind of using those round graduated sections, so it's the exact opposite way of how the hair was technically cut wet. And then of course you'll always find mistakes. If you ever do a haircut and once the hair is dry and you do a cross check, you're always going to find mistakes. And here I'm just going back in and I'm just cleaning up that outline. I'm putting more of like a curved shape into there, so that'll elongate her neck significantly. You're just working at that outline, and I'm always looking for errors. So with this outline, it has to be symmetrical and balanced. Comb the hair out, there's another mistake. So we're always going to get weight, and that weight I assume came from like that, her cowlick at the crown area, but that's fine. I enjoy finding errors when I cross-check the haircut. There's no such thing as a perfect haircut. A great haircut has less mistakes. So if you go in with a cross-check and if you're looking for your errors in a hardcore manner, you'll find a lot more errors. And when you find the errors, then you can remove the errors. So when the client leaves the salon, her haircut has less errors. It's all about a state of awareness. So if you're in a relaxed state, you'll find less errors. But if you're going with a really intense state of mind and you're constantly looking for errors, you will find more errors. And when you find those errors, you should be happy because you found them, and then you can adapt and fix them. So in the end result, there are no errors. So my point is, just don't relax. When you're cutting, don't be relaxed. Be very into your craft, see things that other people don't see, can't see, and won't see. And when you can see these things, then you can adapt to them properly. Okay, just chipping into the ends. I'm not removing length, I'm just removing heaviness. And as I move into the side area here, make sure you comb the hair to natural fall. Like natural fall, seriously, it's something that does not have over direction in it. A good indicator that you've combed the hair to natural fall is when the hair that you comb mimics the teeth of the comb you just combed it with. You want that symmetry and balance there. And then when you're working with these minute details, I just use the tips of my shears. I don't go in and use my entire shear. So here I'm going through the heavier side, and I'll start to remove a bit more weight just to get the symmetry and balance with the density of the hair, because her parting is left to right, so the right portion will be heavier. So I need to technically check it off and ensure that the density is balanced. Just keep on working your cross-check and texturizing until you can comfortably comb the hair from roots to ends, and that's a good indicator that enough is enough. So combing the hair, super shiny, and just checking off this weight. You can just check off a line until it's perfect. Sometimes it takes more time, sometimes it takes less. Just don't rush it. Okay, well there we have it, our G-Bob. Enjoy!